Summer is here and a lot of us are getting outside to enjoy the sunshine. But what to do if you have a puncture? Well, today we're going back to the old school as I show you how to repair an inner tube. If you're taking your bike out of storage and it has been in storage for quite a long time and the tyres are soft, it doesn't necessarily mean it's got a puncture. Our tyres will lose air over time, so before you go reaching for the repair kit, it might be worth pumping them back up, giving it 5 minutes, seeing what they do before taking it out to repair the tube. The first thing you need to do is remove the wheel from the bike. The wheel might be held in place by a quick release lever, which is fairly self-explanatory, or it might have an Allen key fitting, in which case you would need a tool to remove that axle. Now, if you want to make your life far easier, it's a really good trick just to cycle through the gears, making sure you're in the smallest cog at the back. Once you've done that, it's time to turn the bike upside down so we can start getting the wheel out. This fork here uses an axle that has an Allen key fitting, so I'm just going to remove that from the bike. The next thing we need to do is make sure we've removed as much of the air as possible out of the tyre. If you have a slow puncture, there still might be some pressure in there, but that's going to make removal far harder. So if you have a pressed valve like this one, we just unwind the centre and depress it. If you have a Schrader one, which is more commonly thought of as the type you'd often find on a car, you just depress the centre. There you can let all the air out, and this is going to make removing the tyre far easier. Now that the tyre is nicely baggy on the rim, what we're going to do is we're going to get our tyre levers. So we're just going to get them just under the tyre itself there and put them on a spoke. That's what that little hook's for. Then we go to the next spoke along, get the tyre just nestled underneath. Look at that, it prizes off, easy as. Then you can just drive the tyre down and it will come off. Now that you have the two separated, you can put the wheel itself to one side. Now, if you can, try and keep them in kind of similar orientation because it's really going to help the next step. Because what we're going to do is separate them like so you can work out which part corresponded to which part. And we're going to look on the tyre for any obvious places where it might have punctured. Because then if you see a large piece of a big thorn or some glass coming through, then it's going to be really easy to find the same puncture on the tube. And vice versa, if you immediately see where the damage is on the tube, you know where it's going to be on the tyre. Now, a good tip here is to run your hand around the inside to see if you can feel anything sharp. But before you do this, visually inspect it, okay? Because the last thing you want to do is run your hand at quite a high speed across a smooth surface that has something very sharp pointing out of it. So just visually inspect it, try and work out if you can see anything in particular, and then you can maybe gently run your hand around it. Now, if you didn't have any luck finding the culprit in the tyre and you don't know where the puncture is, the next thing we're going to do is put a small bit of air in the tube. Now we're going to pressurise it ever so slightly and then aim to listen for the puncture. If you're at home and you have a bucket of water available, that can be a really useful trick because you can follow the air bubbles. But if you're on the trail side like me, then we're just going to screw on our pump, inflate it and go from there. So now we have some air in the tube, we're just going to listen and try and hear for any punctures. And yep, it is just there. It's very small, this one, but it's definitely there. You can hear it, you can feel it on your skin. So once we have that, some puncture kits come with a bit of chalk. This one doesn't, it comes with this kind of cheese gratery thing, which I'm just going to scuff up the area for a visual reminder as much as anything before doing a better job of it once I've come back to it. Now we're just going to apply a small amount of glue around the hole. Doesn't need to be a crazy amount. Now that's actually ample, maybe even slightly too much. And we're going to leave it to set, okay? So it needs about 5-10 minutes. If you put the patch on now, it won't bond properly, okay? We need it obviously to be an airtight seal. So we're going to give it about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, it depends on temperature, to really become tacky. Now that the area just kind of dried out a bit nice and tacky, we're going to get an appropriately sized patch, remove the foil backing, just place it on, okay? So you want to get it nice and flat and then apply some pressure, because what you're going to try and do is squeeze out any air bubbles or anything that might be lurking underneath. So then we just peel that plastic cover off the back and then we're just going to inflate it just a bit, just to test that seal. Get some pressure in there. I'm just going to put our ear to it like before. Yeah, and there's no air coming out there, so it's good to go back in the wheel. Now that we have our tube repaired, we're actually going to let the air out again to aid installation. And then making sure we get the tyre at the correct orientation, we're going to seat it back to the rim. So a really easy way to do this is to do it one side at a time. So, you can do the first side just with your hands, just work and pop it onto the bead. We're then going to find our valve hole. And like I said, it will be far easier if you do this with kind of little to no pressure in the tube. We're just going to just drop it into the tyre. Try and make sure that it's not twisted. You know, you want it to be in the shape that it's going to be able to just kind of inflate easily. And then we just work around the rim. Making sure everything just drops into place. Now what you don't want to be doing is getting the tyre lever here and potentially puncturing the tube by just, you know, jamming it in without any second thought. What we want to do is get the tube in and kind of out the way before we go reaching for the tyre levers. So I've got it to a place there. I'm reasonably happy. You can make sure it's not seated anywhere else, because that's going to actually make using the tyre levers easier, because it gives you more slack to work with. If you're finding it really difficult, you can leave the last bit until it's over the valve. That can also make it a bit easier with tubes. But we're just going to use our 2 tyre levers, try and kind of work with them together so they can just, there we go. It's really important that we try and use the tyre levers only on the tyre itself, and you don't want to be pinching or getting that tube underneath, okay? Just give it a quick visual inspection to make sure there's no tube bulbing out, and then it is ready for inflation. Once it's inflated and you're happy with the pressure, it's time to put it back in the bike. If you're using an axle like mine, you need to make sure it's torqued correctly, so nice and snug. Not crazy, but certainly nice and snug. And that is how to puncture repair an inner tube so you can get out and enjoy the sunshine. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.